Film Red is the most innovative of the current 15 One Piece movies. Where its predecessor stumbled with balancing an oversized cast, Film Red succeeds with flying colors at not only bringing back a swarm of fan-favorite characters, but it manages to flawlessly connect the main antagonist into the lives of Luffy and Shanks to create an emotional story. Released on August 6th, 2022, this film premiered right after the anime episode where Prometheus asks Big Mom to make him a girlfriend, and the last manga chapter published featured an overt reference to Uda, and I won't spoil anything else. Right off the bat, this movie is an incredibly interesting addition to the One Piece lore, and I believe it's in contention for the top 3 movies. I can't tell if it's the best or not, so I'll be working through that in this review. If you fear spoilers, I insist you go watch the movie as soon as you can, but you should stop watching this review. The elephant in the room here is the music. What a unique direction to take the story and action. I have praised when movies in this franchise actually do something unique to film rather than what can be done in the manga, and this movie is the best example of that. While the movie isn't a musical, 25% of it has gotta be music, but not to worry, because it's damn good. The animation, score, and vocals just blend together perfectly and cycle through fun pop-punk concerts, terrifying monstrous developments, and somber reflections so seamlessly that it's worthy of praise in and of itself. The soundtrack for this movie is available everywhere, and I don't think there's a single dud on it. I particularly like the punkier songs because I'm forever stuck in the 2000s, but Tot Musica also rocked my world. The woman who voices and performs as Uda, I believe you pronounce her name Ado, is just damn talented and such a great choice for this movie. Also, I don't remember hearing it in the movie, but there's a cover of Bink's Sake that she did too, which is incredible. Speaking of Uda, let's get into the actual plot. Like all recent One Piece movies, the Straw Hats just suddenly begin at a location, and don't you dare ask any questions! They're going to a concert for international pop sensation, Uda, who of course Luffy ends up knowing, and she's Shanks' daughter. Yup, the real problem arises when Luffy is like, awesome, great concert and great to see you, but I gotta go to sleep on my pirate ship because I'm a pirate. Big mistake. Uda refuses to let Luffy leave, saying he should stop being a pirate and that pirates are responsible for misery throughout the world, which her adoring fans are pretty much down for, so chaos ensues. I thought it was an interesting idea to open the film with these on-camera interviews of people complaining about the state of the world. Regular citizens who feel downtrodden by pirates and the government. In retrospect, it's implied these are some of the messages that Uda received via snail, and it informs her larger motivation, which I'll get to in a bit, but the general theme that pirates are bad, coming from the daughter of Shanks, was an intriguing way to begin, especially because these people do have a point. It's not all pirates, but it is something that often feels glossed over in the series. In general, the beginning of the movie did feel a bit slow from a pacing perspective. This is something that could have been streamlined just a tad more, maybe by shortening one of the songs, but ultimately, this is just a nitpick, because once the movie gets going, it doesn't slow down. Since this movie is really marketed off of Big Daddy Shanks, let's talk about it. Shanks may have more screen time in this movie than the entirety of the anime, which is insane. We learn that Uda was with Shanks during his time at Fusha Village. She and Luffy had a bit of a sibling rivalry relationship, but one day, she disappeared. Uda despises Shanks in the present, but loved him in the past, so obviously something went wrong there. And I love how Shanks is such a mysterious figure even this deep into the story that the narrative can still play with the audience's perception of him. That's just flashback stuff. He comes into the present with his whole crew in the third act in a big way that I won't get much into, but it was some of the most badass Shanksiness that could have been Shanksed. I loved it. He didn't overstay his welcome, nor did it ruin the air of mystery he still has. It was just enough while actually dropping some possible canon information for the first time. Speaking of the dreaded C word, you know what time it is. As I do with all the One Piece movies, it's time to try and figure out how on earth this could possibly fit into the context of the manga canon. So, I don't know what Oda's deal is, but this movie in particular felt like he was really teasing people. There are actual canon reveals in this movie. Shanks' last name is mentioned by the Five Elders, Uda is a confirmed canon character, and it's heavily implied that Shanks was found by Roger the same way that Shanks found a young Uda. That's the most concrete information we've gotten on Shanks, aside from him just existing in the Odin flashback. At the same time, it's impossible to fit the events of Film Red into the canon timeline. If you squint really, really hard until your eyelids snap off, you could say this movie takes place between the Reverie and Wano, but the Straw Hats don't assemble until the beginning of Act 3. Like, Jinbei even being here throws everything off, but it's not just him. The Big Mom Pirates, Kobe, Law, Beppo, the world government, it's just a big old mess. Like Golden Stampede, Film Red exists in its own timeline, where the Straw Hats just have the magical ability to assemble for some entertainment extravaganza before once again dispersing to their canon locations. Back to the plot. Pretty much every power that exists in this world is aware of Uda and is on their way to stop her. The most surprising twist to me, and perhaps the movie's most brilliant move, was all those who hear Uda's Sing Sing powers being brought into a dream world. This was great. It fits right in with the most fantastical elements of One Piece, while allowing for this massive cast to all conjoin at the same location without there being overlap for the characters that cannot meet in a movie, namely Luffy and Shanks. The Straw Hats can have their own adventure with Law, Barto, Kobe, Cyberpole, and the Big Mom Pirates, while Shanks' crew handles the Navy, Kizaru, and Fujitora. But this also ties into Uda's motivation. After being left behind by Shanks on a largely decimated island, Uda is raised by Giant Penis Head. For nearly 10 years, she was a lonely girl, until she essentially discovered the internet. She started communicating with the outside world via snail, and became an overnight streaming sensation that exploded in popularity. But, much like how she communicated to others through this system, it is also how she got information on the outside world that she'd been cut off from since she was a child. Those interviews from the beginning, the misery that people felt, informed her worldview, and much like a lonely teenager doom-scrolling through Twitter, Uda, in her idealistic immaturity, came up with the perfect plan to save the world with her two-dimensional understanding of it. I love this. It makes Uda an understandably flawed but well-meaning antagonist. She can't even comprehend why what she felt was an ideal world wouldn't be universally accepted even by her fans. Throw in some crazy mushrooms and some evil sheep music, and you've got yourself the perfect combo for a sympathetic antagonist. She's very unique for One Piece, and this was an interesting way to write a young, well-meaning antagonist in a post-COVID world without beating you over the head with internet, isolation, idealism. I do think the eventual reveal of what happened with her and Shanks was predictable and then convoluted. I didn't love the use of outright magic in this series, but for the story it was trying to tell, I thought it did its best. The climax uses the Magic Demon song as the catalyst for a duel across realities between two groups. This final music battle was animated fantastically, and the one thing that sucked about seeing the movie in theaters is that I was unable to rewind. I'm a bit torn that Usopp and Yasopp communicated for the first time in a movie, but it was still a great way to utilize Usopp within this film, because a lot of the Straw Hats are superfluous to the story. I think only Robin and Brook are somewhat relevant with their skill sets, whereas everyone else just occasionally shows up to do their thing. Zora and Sanji felt particularly flanderized in this film. I will say though, that everyone's outfits were on point. I don't think they're my favorites, but a welcome addition to their infinite wardrobes. The reason the Straw Hats feel pushed to the side is because once again, there are a ton of other fan favorite characters to balance. I love the honorary Straw Hats like Law, Barto, and even Kobe at this point, but at times, I do wish these movies could actually show off the main crew rather than bringing in so many others. It was surprisingly entertaining having Bruno, Brule, and Oven in the mix, but it felt like they all had way more screen time than Chopper or Frankie. With that said, every movie since Film Z has been trying to balance canon characters in non-canon stories, and I think Film Red did do it the best. By having the antagonist connected to Luffy and Shanks' past, it created an easy shorthand to get the audience invested, so the story didn't have to do much additional legwork. Why does Uda love Shanks so much? Because we do, no need to get into it. For a long-running series like this, that established shorthand can be a great asset. On the flip side, I think this is the densest movie for newbies to watch. I mean, wow! Are there some deep cuts, layered personalities, motivations, and alliances, all masterfully balanced in this film that would shoot right over a newbie's head. To be fair, at this point, that isn't this story's problem. I just wanted to point out that on a meta level, this movie was clearly made just for the fans. At the end of the day, I think the story of this movie really succeeded. Stripped down to the bare bones without any musical flash or connection to the larger narrative, it's about a lost sister and daughter, corrupted by the world, fighting to make it better the wrong way, and misunderstanding their loved one's fight for the same goal. That's a tragic story that fits One Piece so well, and I'm glad the ending had the somber tone that it had earned. I don't really have any other cons aside from the nitpicks here or there that I laid out. So, on the scale of early 2020s, Jesus, out of canon anime movies, One Piece Film Red is a solid 9 out of 10. I think it's right on par with the greats like Film Gold and Movie 6, but I think it just doesn't reach the heights of Film Z. But what did you think? How'd you feel about Uda as a main character? Which was your favorite song? And how'd you think Shanks' inclusion went? Let's talk about it in the comments. As for me, that's all 15 One Piece movies reviewed, so I can finally rest for a little while. I'm sure there'll be more to come down the line. Thank you so much for watching this, and special thank you to my patrons who pay for the electricity that shocks me to life every morning in my laboratory. And until the next time, I'll shut up.